You're watching the Batter Fans Network.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 110 of the Better MLS Fans Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Granada, and a couple stories circulating in the MLS right now. So I figured to come on here and address it's three, really. It's three names that have been kind of making the rounds over the weekend. So I figured that I would jump on and discuss them. And I'll start off with, I guess, the news of the day. I mean, it started Friday night, late Friday night. Germán Berterame, currently playing for Monterrey, DP striker. I don't think anybody saw this coming. It kind of came out of left field. Everybody kind of figured that Inter Miami would hold off signing a DP until the summer window because after, and good morning to you, Amy. After the World Cup, you figure that bigger names are going to be available and willing to come to the MLS. A lot of people had Inter Miami linked to Griezmann, to Lewandowski, and I personally also agreed with that aspect, that theory that we would wait for the summer window to bring another DP. At the moment, Inter Miami has 4 U22s and 2 DPs, which is the designation that they have to go under. Now, it looks like they're bringing Germán, and if they bring Germán, they have to get rid of one of their U22s. Now, they have to do it by the time the season starts, so they still have another month to figure it out. But as far as their U22s go, they have Silvetti, which I think a lot of people attribute that good run in the playoffs to Silvetti. They have, I'm blanking here. We have Toto Aviles, which doesn't play, so people feel like he shouldn't be a U22. They have David Ayala, which is a newcomer from Portland, so he's not going anywhere. And they have Talasco Segovia, which usually comes off the bench, but has a lot of quality. A lot of people feel he's eventually going to make the move to Europe. So it comes down to Segovia and Aviles probably being the players that Miami has to ship away. One of those two, I think Segovia would be the easier option. Another option that I've heard is that they might buy him down with allocation money and then get rid of the U22 initiative slot for Segovia. But that is what Miami's doing right now. And as far as how he fits, it's interesting because Miami's was most successful when they were playing the 4-3-3 with a false 9 in Messi, late in the year. Luis Suárez left, and it felt like the legs got younger, and they just looked better. Luis Suárez had a really hard time finishing last year. That was the critique, right? He could not finish. He should have had more goals. He had a lot of opportunities that he blew. Although he could create in other ways, he had over 10 assists. So you figure that Luis Suárez gave you more than just goal scoring, but Berterame gives you goal scoring. He is a goal scorer. He was playing great in Monterrey. He has played in Leagues Cup and Champions Cup against MLS teams, and he has eaten up the MLS competition. So Berterame, while I try to pull up his stats right here, he has looked good, and I think he's going to do great here in the MLS. Like I said, it was more than anything just surprising because I thought that they would hold off. Now, what does this tell me, though? This tells me that Miami isn't building this team in hopes of repeating as MLS Cup champions. They are all in on the CCC, and they know that to beat some of these big Liga MX teams, they need to have a stacked roster, and that's what they're going for. That's why they were going for Tristan Blackman, which seems like it's cooled off. Vancouver had some guts there and kind of pulled back on that offer. But here looking at Berterame, this year so far, he's played in 20 matches. He has 11 goals and 3 assists. Last year in 28 games, he had 13 goals. He's a goal scorer, and he's not necessarily the tallest striker. I believe he's 5'8", but from when I was talking to Eddie from Rayados, covers Monterrey, he said he can finish with his head. He is a workhorse. So even if he's not the fastest, he's not slow, but even if he's not the fastest, he puts forth effort in winning balls back. And it's interesting because a lot of people had hope, at least in Miami, that Miami would run out with the 4-3-3. And this is what some people are assuming Inter Miami might look like. They have Berterame as a striker. You have Messi playing as the traditional 10. And then you have Allende and Silvetti on each wing, with Ayala and DePaul playing the double pivot. Now, some other people are saying that Mascherano likes to play the 4-4-2, and obviously this is fluid because when you're switching from on possession and then defending, Sometimes those formations shift, but as a base formation, a lot of people are assuming that maybe it'll stick to a 4-4-2, where Messi is a little higher up top. Maybe Allende and Silvetti playing a little more in the midfield. But it's we'll wait and see. Regardless, Berterame is a huge plus for Miami because they get that finisher that they were lacking last year. Again, Luis Suarez provided a lot in creativity and the assists, but he just wasn't finished consistently, and Berterame provides that. So Miami is cooking because they are doing all of this. And I know a lot of people are saying, how is it? Because when the Galaxy won, they lost so many players. And I get all that. But Miami has also lost players after winning the championship. They lost 2 DPs in Alba and Busquets. They lost a U22. Well, he wasn't U22, but they lost Baltasar Rodriguez. They lost Chelo Wagon. All players that at some point were starters and contributed to the team. So Miami has just done a really good job reloading. And obviously with Messi, it makes it a little easier. But Berterame, huge signing for Miami. And honestly, the way that he's at least been sold to the Miami fan base, it seems like if he is as good as this, absolutely you should be expecting at least 20 goals from him in the season. He will. The critique a lot of times when you get players from South America or just other countries that it takes them a little while to adjust to the MLS. Miami has the benefit that they brought in a Mikael, already adjusted. He played for Houston. They brought in a David Ayala from Portland, already adjusted. Yes, Berterame hasn't played in the MLS, but he has a lot of experience playing against MLS teams. Again, he's traveled for Champions Cup games. So, if, again, you keep getting players that maybe aren't 100% in line with the MLS, but are probably going to be a little quicker to adjust. So, I'm impressed with what Miami's done, and they're going all in on CCC. It's obvious, and we'll see how that goes. So Berterame, again, probably the biggest news of the weekend. Another news that keeps getting kicked around, James Rodríguez. He is now being linked to Austin FC. Now, it's hard to believe that he would go to Austin just because of the fact that they already have all 3 DP spots filled. I can't imagine that James Rodríguez would go anywhere if it's not for a DP contract, even though his club performance isn't the best. Originally, he was linked to Columbus, which, I mean, it didn't make sense to me either. But, close to Colombia, name-wise, they wear a yellow jersey, and the joke is if he's wearing the yellow jersey, he'll ball out. I don't know what Carlo Ancelotti did, but Carlo Ancelotti seems to be the only manager to get the most out of James Rodríguez when he is playing in the club. His first year in Real Madrid, he played great under Carlo Ancelotti. He left, and then James flamed out. Then he went and he joined them in Bayern. His first year in Bayern, again, played well. Carlo Ancelotti left there, flamed out. Followed him to Everton, and same story. Played well. It seems like Carlo Ancelotti is the only one that has gotten anything out of James. So unless Carlo Ancelotti is going to come and manage him here in the MLS, I don't see how he's going to do MLS-wise. I don't see if he fits in Austin. I don't think so. I was thinking something like Houston maybe, just because, and this is basically off the pitch, it was basically because there's such a large Colombian contingent that I think kind of like Miami did with Messi, where they wanted to get the eyes of the globe on them. LAFC got sunned. They got a lot of following. If you bring James Rodríguez to your club, you are going to get a huge Colombian following. And here in this country, there's a lot of Colombians. I believe it's the second most represented nation outside of Mexico in the United States. When you watch Copa America back in 2024, that looked like you were playing in Barranquilla, the way that those stadiums are filling up for Colombia. So I think that if he were to end up in an MLS squad, talking strictly out of football, that would be huge for the team PR-wise, jersey sale-wise, filling up the stadiums, because Colombians will come out and support James, because James is probably either first or second Colombians all time when you maybe compare him to maybe Pio Valderrama. So I think that would be it. I thought Houston, because of the Colombians, I reached out to John from Loud and Proud to ask him what he thought about James going to Orlando. He said that after the Muriel experiment, I don't think that they'll be trying any party Colombians either, because a lot of people say that James likes to party. I think he's at the point where he just wants to perform and do well. But Orlando's looking for more for a DP striker apparently, so we'll see. But James Rodríguez rumored to LA to Austin makes no sense, but there's been so many links to him coming to the MLS. I think it might happen. Where it's going to be, I don't know. New York might be another option, but it sounds like it's going to happen because I haven't heard his name linked to any other league other than the MLS. So somebody's pushing him to come over here. Now, the reason that the Austin doesn't make any sense is because Austin already has their 3 DPs, and that third DP is Facundo Torres. I just blanked. I'm sorry. Facundo Torres, that formerly played in the MLS and is returning. Now, he was sold to Palmeiras, which is one of, if not the biggest club in Brazil, for I believe it was 13 million. Flamed out in 1 year. Did not. He disappointed basically, and he's on his way back to the MLS. Now, I don't know what that does to his confidence. He showed that he could play very well in MLS when he was playing for Orlando. So for those of you that forgot, he played with Orlando before. And I think he's going to be great again. When you look at this Austin team and you think about the fact they have Brandon Vasquez and let's say Uzuni plays a little more central. And then you have down the left side, Jaden Nelson, when they just added. Then you have Facundo Torres down the right side. You have Eli Sanchez. You have Owen Wolf. Like, you have a solid squad there in Austin. Austin's done a great job just building up this team in this offseason. And I think that Austin might be a problem this year coming up with Facundo Torres down that right side. Again, Jaden Nelson down the left side. Austin has done a really good job. Again, going quickly back to James. James doesn't fit in this equation. But I think just looking at Austin overall, Austin did a great job building. And Austin not playing any games? No. And Austin isn't playing again? No. And then this goes just to general, to people that talk about the MLS, because I see a lot of people saying like, oh my God, look at what Miami's doing. Nobody else is doing anything. I think a lot of teams are doing a lot. Like when you look at Austin, for example, LAFC, I get that Schaffelberg isn't necessarily the best, but I think that he's going to contribute a lot as far as speed goes. Maybe he starts over David Martinez. Maybe David Martinez starts, but I think Schaffelberg with his pace will bring something. You got Nashville. They got Christian Espinosa. Like, you have teams that are doing and making moves. It's just they're making moves to win the MLS Cup, whereas Inter Miami is focused in on winning Champions Cup, and it takes another caliber of roster to kind of go all in for that. Right now, I think there's teams in the MLS that want to win the Champions Cup. They're going to be part of the Champions Cup, but they're not building their roster specifically for the Champions Cup. Whereas in Miami, I think are specifically building their roster to win Champions Cup, and then they will play and try to win as many MLS games along the way. And obviously, if you have a good roster, that'll help. But I think when they base their roster, they're basing it on Champions Cup. Whereas in Austin right now, they're building that team. They're saying this is good enough to compete for the MLS Cup. Nashville, this is good enough to compete for the MLS Cup. But other teams aren't thinking that way, which is fine. Like, MLS Cup is the goal for MLS, but Inter Miami wants to be global. They want to win the Continental Trophy. And I really do believe that the reason that they want to win the Continental Trophy so much is because if they succeed winning that CCC, I think they're going to start saying that they want to be part of Copa Libertadores, which is the Continental Trophy in South America. I really do think that that's going to be the end game for them. I do think that they're going to try to push that envelope if they win the CCC, which I think would be great for the MLS. Liga MX used to participate in Copa Libertadores. I think it was Cruz Azul that made it to the final once or twice. I think they might have had 2 or 3 finalists actually in Copa Libertadores. And I think that that's ultimately the goal. But they need to win the CCC. They need to show that they could be the best in their continent before they start asking for entrance in another continent tournament. So I think that that might be the goal for Inter Miami. And I think that that would be great. And Rico's saying Copa Libertadores should be played in a host country every 4 years, 2027 in U.S. I mean, I think that would be a genius idea as far as for branding and promotion for South America and for the MLS. Look, as if all the collaborations you can do with MLS and other leagues, especially stuff like South America, which I think is a lot of times underappreciated globally. I think that would be good for everybody involved. But I think that, again, that's ultimately the goal for Inter Miami. But the other MLS squads, I think it's a disservice when they say that they aren't trying. I think that a lot of teams are trying. Maybe not everybody. I'm not going to say everybody's trying, but there are teams that are putting together moves and putting together good teams. Toronto, for example, has done a great job. Austin, we were just talking about. Nashville. San Jose. San Jose just picked up Timo Werner. I think that there's a lot of teams that are doing a lot of good things, and I think that I think it's silly that people are discrediting them just because Miami's doing just a little more. It's easier to do a little more when you have Messi as a selling point. I think that's it. I wanted to just talk about these three signings. I think that those are three huge names that are being kicked around. Facundo Torres, I know, again. And I guess I'll end it with this. I did see on Twitter, I wonder if I'm ever going to call it X. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Twitter. I just can't imagine calling it S. But I did see on Twitter that a lot of people were saying that this isn't good for the MLS. The fact that players are leaving here as probably good players, right? Like all-star players, you would say. And they go to other leagues and they're flaming out and then returning. And I agree that that isn't good, but it isn't happening as often, I think, as people think. Now, recently, it's happened twice over the last month where you saw Facundo Torres. He went to the top team in Brazil, or the top 3 team in Brazil, and couldn't cut it. But that's basically saying that's the top team in probably this side of the world, Palmeiras. Like, best league, Brazil, and probably one of the top 3 teams. If you can't make it there, like, I understand that you want to, and it sucks that they didn't, but that's top team. Like, that's like saying that you had, I don't know, Redondo, who went to Miami, and he went to La Liga, but he ended up, or Cucho. Cucho goes to La Liga, but he ends up playing for Atletico Madrid and ends up back in the MLS. Atletico Madrid is a top 3 team in La Liga. And if he doesn't make it, I think it sucks, but it just takes like another level. And maybe the MLS players aren't there, but they could make it somewhere else. Like if he would have ended up at another team that wasn't Palmeiras, somewhere else in South America or somewhere else. Yeah, I know Cucho plays in Real Betis. I was giving an example because I think he's playing well there. And Tati Castellano has also been playing well in Europe. So there are team players that have gone across and played well. I'm just saying that the ones that have returned back, because Mikael was another one, played for Houston, went to Palmeiras like Facundo, and ended up back in the MLS. And people are saying, oh, but that's not a good look. I get it, but they couldn't cut it in the top team in the top league in that continent. So I think it's like another level, and that's fair. I want them to succeed, but I think them not succeeding in those circumstances, although you want to see it, I understand why it's not. I don't think it's as big a deal as everybody's making it out to be. I don't. But that's just me. But I did see a lot of talk about that. But again, if they're not making it on Palmeiras, it's not the worst thing in the world. You want them to. I think it would have been a lot better if they did, but it's not that big a deal. And then Ali Ahmed wasn't he playing well? He just started in Norwich just like last week. And my understanding is that he's been playing well. Kai Wagner has been decisive in championship. Kai Wagner, I haven't kept up with him, but I know Ali Ahmed has looked good while he was been there. Diego Gomez has also looked good for Brighton. So there are there are players that are succeeding when they leave the MLS. But again, just because they don't make it in the very top teams in the top leagues like Palmeiras in Brazil, if one of them, I can't think of any MLS that ended up in a top team in a top league in Europe, but just the Palmeiras example, I don't think that that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Again, it was just a quick 3-player episode. Miami's going all in. Facundo Torres, I don't think it was a failure coming back to the MLS. And James Rodríguez, he's going to end up somewhere in the MLS. I have no idea where, but he'll be somewhere, and it's going to be great. So if you're listening on audio, appreciate you listening to the end. Please give us 5 stars and a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And for those of you in the chat, I didn't even promote the episode. I just jumped on because it was raining and I just wanted to talk. So I jumped on. So I appreciate everybody that has the notifications on and jumped on with me. So until the next one, have a good one.